Hello and welcome back to another episode of Orders Up on Salmon's Pizzeria. I was wrote out so many intros for this to deliver our guest, but you're all going to see him, right? So I can't. There's nothing I could do to do it justice other than say the dream guest of all dream guests for us today, Conor Sammon. Conor, how are you doing?
Yes, very good, Stuart. Very good. Thank you very much for having me on. I've heard a lot about the podcast and lots of good things, and just delighted to get on and have a discussion, have a chat with you as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on. And we'll jump straight in so we can get through as much as we can. Just the sort of thing that I tend to ask a lot the professional footballers is when you're sort of growing up at a younger age and you're starting to play for your youth clubs, when you're around more, I don't know, your schools and stuff like that, do you know that you're like that much better than other kids like from a younger age, or does that come later on for you?
Good question. I think when I first sort of started playing football for a team, I think I was maybe 6 or 7 years of age, and I was always kicking a football around the house, like around the road outside. I just loved playing football. So when I first joined a team and playing in a match, I can remember going to the match with my dad, with my family, I should say. And I think I said to my dad, look, if I score a goal today, will you buy me a Snickers? Was what I'd said, I think. And do you know what? We went and won, I think, maybe 9 goals to 1. I scored, I think, 7 goals that day. And it was our first real introduction into playing as part of a team and stuff like that. So from a young age, I always felt like I had maybe a talent for football, but I didn't know, obviously, at that age where that would take me, because I think when you're playing locally, you might be the best player in your estate or something like that, but then you very quickly realise that there's other very good players maybe out with your estate or out with your team. So that was my first experience. So I kind of had a confidence from my first sort of competitive match like that. But still, at the same time, you know that there's lots of other players out there that will definitely take you down a peg or two.
Amazing. I see that you do eventually sign for UCD, University College Dublin, but before that, you sort of your younger career, your local clubs. I see that you played for Cherry Orchard, which when I was looking through their alumni, it's like Stephen Gleeson, Alan Quinn, Stephen Quinn, Andy Reid, Glenn Whelan, Ender Stevens, Tony Stokes, Johnny Hayes. Like the list goes on and on and on. So that seems to be like a real, production factory of top Irish talent.
Yeah, it does. I'm from Malahide myself, which is on the north side of Dublin. So I started with Malahide United from a young age, like I said earlier, 6, 7 years of age. I think I stayed with Malahide until I was maybe 14 or 15 years of age, before I then moved to a team, Mid Sutton, which was another local team as well. And I was there for maybe 2 years. And it was then at the age of maybe 16, 17 where I moved to Cherry Orchard. And it was a step up again. Like Cherry Orchard are well renowned for being like one of the top schoolboy football teams in Dublin. So many players, like you just mentioned there, that have come through, that have gone on to have very successful professional playing careers. So yeah, it was a real progression for me. It was pushing me out of my comfort zone. I was from the north side. I was from the north side of Dublin, and suddenly you're commuting a lot further. And thankfully, I had parents that were very supportive, that were willing to, drop me and drive an hour to train and stuff like that. So, but Cherry Orchard, yeah, an amazing career, amazing football club with such a rich tradition of producing, talented young footballers that have gone on to be very successful within the game.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think there's many top European clubs that have as many like top players that have gone on and achieved so much. Like I say, you do sign for UCD. You have a couple of really good seasons there, and sort of Derry City seem to scoop you up. And in that same year, you head for a trial with Kilmarnock and eventually sign a 3-year deal. When you obviously you've been through a team like Cherry Orchard, you're doing well at UCD and then Derry City. The trial comes at Kilmarnock, but are there other clubs sniffing around from England, Scotland, and starting to take notice?
At the time, I don't think so. To be honest with you, like you mentioned there, I had the opportunity to play with UCD at the age of maybe 17, 18, which was such a good experience looking back. At that young age, you're getting an opportunity to play first team football against the Irish League. The Premier League in Ireland is very physical. You're playing against grown men, and you're like, I was quite a skinny, young, lanky sort of player. So it was a real learning curve for me, but like one that I really enjoyed, and it's definitely toughened me up as I've got older and prepared me well for when I did move over to Kilmarnock. But at the time, I think John Robertson, the former Hearts striker, he was the manager at Derry City. He signed me, I think, in an off season, and whatever happened with him and the board, he ended up leaving the club. So he'd signed me as a player. I went to Derry City then, and there was a new manager in charge. I think it came about though because John Robertson played for Jim Jeffries at Hearts all those years ago. So I think maybe he'd recommended that Kilmarnock maybe have a look at me. I think at the time there was maybe Hamilton who were also interested, but I never spoke with Hamilton. It was always a case of I came over to, like you say, trial and train with Kilmarnock, with Jim Jeffries and Billy Brown were the manager and assistant at the time, and yeah, loved it. Went really well, and they wanted to sign me. So it was another kind of progression in my career, going from part-time football with UCD, signing them with Derry City, who were a full-time team, and then very quickly getting the chance to move to Scotland as well, which was definitely a step up in my career.
Yeah, definitely. And you just mentioned there, you moved there under Jim Jeffries, and looking back at that, like, perfect time of me supporting football, right? And like Alan Combe, Craig Bryson, Mehdi Taoul, who was a personal favourite of mine, like growing up, Pascali Fernandez, Jamie Hamill, Gary Hay, Fowler. There's also really good young players coming through. But in terms of the league, Kilmarnock, they finished 8th and then 11th. Do you think that side sort of underachieved around that time? Because there was a really strong squad there.
There was a strong squad, yeah, really strong. We had real experience within the group, like you mentioned there, with Gary Hay, who played so many games for the club, with James Fowler, as well, who had played a lot of games. But yeah, for whatever reason, we ended up sort of being in the bottom 6 and sometimes struggling. And in the second season, we came very close. I think we were in a relegation sort of playoff match with Falkirk, if my memory is correct. And yeah, it's crazy for a club, because Kilmarnock is a big club with a rich history in Scottish football. So for us to be in that position, it was definitely from a fan's point of view, and even from a player's point of view, it was frustrating that we weren't doing as well as we probably feel we should have.
Yeah, definitely. So Mixu Patalana comes in, who we've had on the pod, and honestly couldn't speak highly enough about yourself. And you have a breakout season under him, 18 goals in 27 outings, which earns you a big move to England, which we will come to. But was there anything different under Mixu, or was it just more games for you? Like what happened that it just seemed to click for you under Mixu?
Yeah, when Mixu came in, it was an incredible change and transformation, sort of, because the previous 2 years we had been fighting in the bottom 6, fighting relegation. Mixu came in and he just had this real belief that he wanted his team to play a lot more football. We were quite a direct team. We were physical. And he just had this way and real, like I say, strong belief that he wanted us to play football. He wanted us to pass out from the back. He wanted us to play more kind of free-flowing, attacking football. And it was incredible, absolutely incredible, the transformation that he managed to put on the team. For me personally, the system of play and everything that he wanted to do just suited me to a T. I was up front as a lone striker, and it was almost like a Christmas tree formation. I'll always remember, because it was such a strong team. We had a back 4, we had 3 central midfielders, we had 2 then kind of number 10s, and we had a striker up front. And the two number 10s you mentioned earlier about Mehdi Taoul being one of your favourite players, I think. And I can understand that because he was so skillful. He would do little tricks. He would. He was just a really talented footballer. And the other number 10, obviously, Alexei Eremenko, he was absolutely incredible. An incredible footballer. He came in. Mixu obviously had worked with him or had known him from his time in Finland. So we signed this boy. We had heard rumours that he was on like a really big contract in Russia, I think it was at the time.
Russia, yeah, it was, yeah.
And we managed to sign him, and just you could see his quality from as soon as he trained with us. As I trained with him more often, I would almost call him the quarterback. He would honestly just you'd give him the ball, and for me as a striker, you'd always be trying to find space. You'd be on the last defender's shoulders. And every time he got the ball, he was looking, scanning to see, could he play a through ball? Could he find you into space? And the relationship that we built up over the 6 months or so that I played with him was absolutely incredible. I would make runs, and I just knew he would be looking to play the pass. Some players, some number 10s, they're keen to kind of show their skill and do a trick here and there. Whereas Alexei was just so talented at finding players that were running into space. He was so clever. And then even Mehdi Taoul, who was a very skillful player, I think he started to take note of Alexei and what he was doing. And he was starting to get more assists in his game. He was getting more goals in his game. And that was definitely down to the effect of having Alexei Eremenko within the team. I absolutely loved my time there. Loved playing with in that team with Mixu and Kenny Shields as well. They just worked tirelessly to help us improve. Like I say, we became a total football team. We made some mistakes. We gave away some cheap goals, and Mixu was always, do you know what? I've got full belief in the way that we want to play, that this is going to happen, but it's all part of us getting to the stage where we are going to get better at playing that system. And it worked. I think that season they finished, it was maybe fourth, I think, in the league. And Mixu was an incredible manager. And I really enjoyed my time playing under him. It was a real, one of my favorite times during my career from a playing side, where everything just seemed to click. Everything almost felt like it was geared for me to do well. That's the way it felt. And yeah, loved it. Loved every minute of it.
100%. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I think most people question how Eremenko was at Kilmarnock because he was outrageous, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You earn your move to Wigan. There was rumoured interest from Derby as well, which then does come later on. Was it still difficult for you to leave the club? Is it just a case that this is the Premier League and you can't really turn that down?
Well, we were obviously in January, and I had such a good start to the season. I was scoring so many goals. I was playing with such confidence. I just felt going into matches with the way we were playing, with the chances we were going to create, I just felt like I was going to score. And that attracted some interest. I think earlier in the transfer window, I had an offer to go down to Scunthorpe at the time, who I think they're in the Championship at the time. So I went down, travelled down, and had a look around the training ground, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it was the right move, even though I knew it was a step up. It was in terms of you were going to maybe earn a better contract and stuff like that. But no, I came back, I remember, and I was still really enjoying my football. I was loving it at Kilmarnock under Mixu, scoring goals. And I think it was on the very last day. I think it was the classic deadline day. I was driving home from training. I get a phone call, and it was Roberto Martinez, who was the manager at Wigan at the time, which was really surreal. It was crazy. You're just coming back from training, and suddenly then you're speaking to a Premier League manager who's speaking to you and saying, "Look, we really want to try and sign you." So that was an absolute no-brainer for me. It was it was a step up again. It was an opportunity to go and play in such a competitive league down in the Premier League. So it was one that I jumped at. I absolutely loved it, and yeah, it was crazy because the season was you're halfway through a season with Kilmarnock. It was going so well. But from a personal point of view, for me to progress in my career, for me to go and challenge myself at an even higher level, it was an absolute no-brainer for me, and one that I look back on fondly as well, with lots of fond memories, and really enjoyed my time there as well.
Yes, I mean, at this point, the trajectory of your career from Irish football, Scottish football, Premier League very quickly. It's pretty crazy. You do score your first Premier League goal as well in a 3-2 win over West Ham. I imagine like how special that was, but like how tough was the step up again? And like I just said, it's such a quick trajectory. Is it step up getting harder and harder for you? Or is it sort of coming a bit more naturally because you're going so quickly?
No, it definitely was. It was definitely a step up again, and I think the frustrating part when I look back on it now, and I'm sure Roberto will have had his reasons for it, but I was absolutely brimming with confidence. I was flying. I was scoring regularly with Kilmarnock. Then you obviously get your move. You go down to Wigan. Definitely, it's a step up. And when I went down, I didn't play. I didn't play as much football initially as I would have hoped, and that can come down to the manager maybe thinking, do you know what, trying to ease me in, or he's not quite ready to go straight in. I'm not too sure, but from a selfish point of view, personally for me, I was just confidence was so high. I felt so good physically. I was scoring regularly. So yeah, I kind of craved playing more football, getting more of an opportunity. But it definitely was. It was a step up. I think I found myself in training, sometimes looking around, thinking, I think you build up these people that they're absolute machines, they're robots, that they just are at such an elite level. And I think then when you come down and you train with them and you realize that they're just like me, they're human, they make mistakes, they get caught in possession, they miss chances. I think that then made me think, you know what, these boys are, yeah, they're definitely playing at a higher level, but they're also human, which I think sometimes as players, as fans, you put them on such a pedestal that you think that they can do no wrong almost. So that definitely helped my mentality shift to be like, you know what, I can train with these boys. I can, fight for place here and get lots of football in. Do you know what I mean? So, but scoring a goal, that particularly in that game against West Ham, I think we were 2-0 down at half time. I think had we lost, we would have got relegated that day. And we ended up having a crazy comeback where I think Charles Nzogby scored 2 goals. I managed to get a goal and we ended up winning 3-2. So that was my first Premier League goal. And it was just an incredible experience. And looking back on it now, the importance of the 3 points where we ended up then going on the last day and staying up made it even more sort of special. Because everyone had written us off. We were quite far adrift, I think, and managed to finish the season strong and surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I think was that the season. Was that season Wigan became? I think they became the first team that were bottom at Christmas and survived relegation or something like that in the Premier League.
Yeah,
It was a weird stat.
I think
but
you're right.
yeah, it was. I remember it at the time because they used to always do the big soccer Saturday relegation day, didn't they? So
Yeah,
yeah, it was pretty incredible. 2 seasons in the Premier League before you move on. Maybe a coincidence, but you leave and Wigan get relegated. So maybe that was the problem.
they also
Derby
did. They
seemingly
also
interesting.
did win the FA Cup, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was Ben Watson, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
the goal against Man City. But Derby seemingly interested before. Come back in, take you to Pride Park. You are dropping down a division, but you're obviously going to a very big club in Derby County. Was there any sort of disappointment that you're dropping down a decision, or is it at that point, you're still excited because, like I said, Derby's a big club with rich history, like you said, with Kilmarnock as well, and another chance that. I mean, you're going in, I think Nigel Clough's the manager and maybe a team set up to try and come up anyway.
Exactly that, yeah. Like when I was at Wigan, like I'd mentioned before, I wasn't playing regularly. I was coming on as a sub. I think I went through a phase where I did maybe the most amount of games I started back to back might have been 7 or 8 games. So it definitely came to a point. I think Wigan had signed an Argentinian striker, Mauro Boselli at the time. He was coming back into the fold, and I just felt, do you know what? It was the time for me. I think the fact that Derby were interested, it felt like the right move for me to try and go and play more football. Even though it was dropping down from the Premier League to the Championship, I was blown away by the size of club that Derby were at the time, and still are obviously today. You know, the fan base, the stadium, the training ground. It was a step up in terms of all of those things from Wigan, which is crazy enough. You know, Wigan's obviously there's a rugby element to the town as well, whereas Derby is just very much, they live for their football down there. So it was a very easy decision for me, because I felt, do you know what, Nigel Clough had shown a real interest in me. I knew he was interested in me previously before I moved to Wigan, which is always a good thing as a player when you know someone, a manager, is an admirer of you. So for me to sign there was another great opportunity for me to try and play more regular, to be a part of a team that were really pushing to try and get promoted to the Premier League. So yeah, really enjoyed my time at Derby. Nigel Clough was a really good man manager, sort of. I think he took a lot from his dad, having watched some documentaries and stuff on his dad and stuff like that. And he seemed to, the group of players that we had at Derby, in terms of like just characters in a dressing room, where everyone seemed to really just get along with each other, enjoy working with each other, enjoy pushing each other. I think Nigel must have done a lot of research on people's backgrounds, characteristics, because we just had an amazing changing room with some great players, great personalities within it, which made it a really enjoyable place for me to play my football for the length of time there that I did.
Absolutely, and a real good side is assembled. Steve McLaren comes in. You have the push it promotion, just falling short in the league. You make the playoff final, suffer a heartbreaking 90th minute defeat to QPR. How is a dressing room after a moment like that? Obviously, I can imagine how somber it is, but is it just you're obviously going to have to then share the disappointment, but does it make you just like more determined to go again the following year, or is it just like you can't think about anything else at that time?
No, at that time you're just absolutely, what would you say, distraught. You know what I mean? You just you're going into such a big one-off match. It's a cup final, effectively. You know, you're playing at Wembley. I can remember it was such a beautiful day as well, as it tends to be. I think it must have been obviously May time, playing against QPR, who on paper, I think they had, much more, what would you say, a much better team on paper, if you like. They had bigger names. They were definitely, I think, investing a lot more money at the time in the hope of getting promoted. Harry Redknapp was their manager. And the game, the way it unfolded, was probably even harder to take, because we felt like we dominated the match. I think they had a man sent off as well, if I'm correct, which again just meant we were more dominant. We just couldn't find the goal. It was attack after attack. We just couldn't find that kind of killer pass or moment of quality in the final third to get the victory. And it was right at the death, which made it probably even harder, because you had no time to respond and try and get back into the game. It was Bobby Zamora's finish. So it was heartbreaking, sort of, for everyone at the club. Richard Keogh, our captain as well, he had kind of made a mistake for the goal, which made it even harder as well, because I think as a player, as a group of players, you prefer for an individual to go and have a bit of magic, to go and get a match winner against you. So when it's in such a big game and it's an error, an individual error that costs the team like that, it makes it even harder because you don't want to see one of your teammates in that position. You wouldn't want to be in that position yourself. So yeah, it was a really tough one, really tough one to take. But again, that's football. That is football, and when you've been involved in it, you quickly realise that is the way it is. And yeah, they would go on to mount more sort of attempts at getting back into the Premier League, but obviously haven't been able to. So it's just how small little margins can have such a big impact on a club's sort of trajectory, if you like. But yeah, it was a sore one, really sore one to take.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll bring it back up for you. You around this time as well, you're starting to earn caps for your country, going on to make obviously 9 appearances for Ireland as well, draws with Sweden, Austria, England, beating the likes of Poland, playing the full 90 against Spain away from home. Obviously, probably some of your most proudest moments. But what's it like? Because when I look back at that Spain game as well, Xavi and Iniesta are in the middle. I mean, what is that like to play against?
Yeah, that was incredible. Like for me personally, growing up, I was always a big Man U fan. Right, Man U was my team. Eric Cantona was my first sort of footballing hero. But I also had a real soft spot for Barcelona. I used to love watching Spanish football on a Saturday, on a Sunday, and obviously, when you speak of Barcelona, you can't help but speak of obviously Xavi, Iniesta, as two of the main guys, and even Sergio Busquets as well.
Yeah.
He was playing in that midfield as well. So it was an incredible experience to see these boys up close playing against them, because physically you'd look at them and think they're so small, and you'll be able to overpower them and stuff like that. And it couldn't be further from the truth, because they're technically so good and so gifted that you can't get near them to lay a hand on them almost. So it was a real experience to play against such a talented group of players like that. But yeah, particularly both Xavi and Iniesta were definitely the pick of the bunch, where you're just chasing shadows, trying to get near them. An incredible experience. And to be fair, we pushed them. Although we didn't have much of the ball, we did push them close. I think it was maybe a 2-0 defeat, and they ended up scoring maybe their second goal quite late in the game. So yeah, really good experience. And the whole thing to get the opportunity to play for your country is such a special feeling, and one that I look back fondly as well from my memories and the players I got to play with. And yeah, experiences like that playing against Spain. I think at the time they might have been world and European champions as well, which just adds to it and shows how strong their group of players were at that time.
100%. We'll try and move on a little bit, because we had some technical issues, so I don't want to waste too much of your time. You have some loans out: Ipswich, Rotherham, Sheffield United, some pretty good ones as well in there. You returned to Scotland after this to join Hearts. Big club, European football, had been quite successful under Robbie Neilson, certainly in terms of coming back, because they'd won the championship with Rangers and Hibs in, which was ridiculous. He leaves in December and Cathro comes in, which seemed to be a bit of an experiment at the time. Is that, I mean, you mentioned it with John Robertson, sorry. You mentioned it earlier, when you have a manager that brings you to the club and then they leave. Is that really difficult, or is it just sort of full focus on the next manager and what he wants? Because obviously I imagine the manager that brings you in has brought you in for a reason and the style that he wants to play, and then obviously he's moving on.
Yeah, no, it is very difficult. And it's difficult when it happens so soon after you join a team. Like, as footballers, you understand that nowadays, and even back then, which was 2016, I think at the time, you can tell that the lifespan of a manager, I should say, sorry, is very, like, it can be very, very short if results don't go their way. Particularly at the bigger clubs, and Hearts are definitely one of those bigger clubs where they have such a big fan base. So if there's any negativity within the fans, obviously that can lead to managers losing their jobs. In Robbie Nielsen's example, I think he moved to MK Dons, So it was a chance. He had done very well, like you mentioned before. They'd come back from the championship. They were looking really strong under Robbie. He had built a strong team, a strong group of players, and I was really excited to join. I was really impressed after I met with Robbie as well, and yeah, I enjoyed my initially the first 3-4 months there where I was playing more regular, and then it definitely becomes difficult when obviously Robbie moves and goes down to MK Dons. And then Ian Cattrall came in, and naturally enough, then he's a new manager with his own ideas, his own maybe style of play that he wants to input on the team. And yeah, I just found that I wasn't going to get much of an opportunity, so I knew I had to move on. Where I would eventually go on to move to have some loan spells with Partick Thistle, with Motherwell, with Kilmarnock for a brief spell as well. So yeah, it is part and parcel of football where things can change very, very quickly. A manager change and you could be playing regularly, and then that quick change around, suddenly it doesn't look like you've got a future at the club. So no, it is difficult, going back to your original question.
Yeah, and then like you said there, you moved to Kilmarnock on loan. I think you sort of were one of the guys that was supposed to replace Koulibaly, who had that excellent 6 months for Kilmarnock, and then had that weird transfer and everything that came after that. And you scored some really important goals. Almost like you just went back to when you were first at Kilmarnock, because the goals start coming in again, and you're playing regularly, which can always help when you're at a club like this, because we will come on to, won't go through each loan, maybe one more in Partick for a particular reason, but when you're out on loan, is your mindset that you're impressing to go back and play? Is it that you're impressing for the team you're at, or is it just, I'm just going to score goals, I'm going to do what I can do, and then what happens?
Yeah, it's definitely a case of simplifying it and just thinking, you know what, I'm at Kilmarnock, for example, and I've got an opportunity here to show what I can still do at this level. Show, with the option to potentially Kilmarnock wanting to sign you then beyond that. You just want to do the best for yourself. Do you know what I mean? You want to showcase yourself in the best possible way, by scoring goals in my situation as a striker. But yeah, you want to contribute. And if you're on loan at a team, you want that team to look at you and go, do you know what? We want to sign him permanently because we know what he's about. We know what he can do. So yeah, you definitely, you move on quickly. I think if you go on loan, there can be that little bit of where you're not wanted sort of thing by a club. And again, that's just the harsh reality of football. You understand that the more experience you have within the game. It's not necessarily personal. It's just that you don't fit the style of play, or they've got players in that position that they feel are better suited. So yeah, again, going back to Kilmarnock, I've got such a what would you say, just a real feel good factor around the club from my first spell there. I met my wife. She's a Kilmarnock fan, so again, it's just a special club to me that I'll always keep an eye on. I'll always watch out for. I've got a real keen interest in, and going back to get a chance to play with them for that second spell was one that I absolutely loved. Loved the experience of again.
Amazing. Well, we've got a resident Killy fan on the pod, so he's going to be absolutely delighted to hear that. You go to Partick Thistle on loan. You have a really good spell there as well. Obviously, you end up being the league top goal scorer for them. But the moment we have really been waiting for is when you join Partick Thistle on loan. They seemingly make a deal with Pizza Express, if social media is to be believed, that entitles you to a free pizza every time you score. And I think at the time it was #FeedTheFish. The very famous picture of you holding the pizza in the Partick kit, which of course became an inspiration for our own podcast. When did you find out this was a thing? Was it a thing? And how legit were you? Just receiving pizzas every time you score goals?
Yeah, no, it was as crazy as what you just said there. The local Pizza Express, I think they must have obviously been trying to promote, do some promotions or work alongside the club at the time. I think they had initially started it with a case of that the man of the match would get
Yeah.
a pizza, which was quite a random one because in terms of usually in football you might get a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne or something along those lines. So a pizza was quite a different sort of one. For me personally, I love my food, so it was quite a nice one to receive. And yeah, I think it just became quite a viral sort of photo because the context of the photo, I think we were playing against Aberdeen in the particular game where the photo was taken after. I think we were maybe winning the game 1-0 with about probably 5 or 10 minutes to go. I think we would either go on to lose the game or draw the game. And you're literally walking off the pitch. You're quite frustrated at the fact that we've just conceded. We've dropped some points, and suddenly this pizza is handed to you. Get a photo with this pizza, and the timing just was terrible. Hence why my face was absolutely horrendous. You know, looking like I was chewing a wasp, just like angry. But yeah, and like I said at the start, that photo has followed me so many places. So many people have come up to me and said, "Oh, do you realize that photo of you with the pizza is on the internet," sort of thing? Do you know? And like the amount of times that I've had to kind of respond and just give some context on the photo because yeah, it's such a bad photo, but one that people get a good laugh out of, you know, which I don't mind.
Yeah, it's propelled us as a podcast to have that, because I think that when we first did it as well, you looked too nice in our cartoon. I was like, we need to make him a bit angry. He looks angry to get the pizza, and that's where the eyebrows come in. But it's amazing to hear some context around it as well. You have 2 decent seasons at Falkirk as well, and then you opt to join Alloa, who are relegated from the Championship now under Brian Rice. And Brian is another man we've had on. Had a fantastic interview with us, and again, couldn't speak highly enough for yourself. He seems to enjoy playing very attacking football as a manager. He seemed to be very keen to tell me that, you know, he doesn't like sitting back and protecting leads. And for you, is that a style a bit like Mixu that just suited you a bit more? And you know, what was the draw for going to Alloa? Obviously, you're still there now, which we'll get onto a little bit of, but it's just become such a good fit for you.
Yeah, no, when I initially joined, it was Barry Ferguson who'd signed me.
Okay.
He had signed me initially, and the first season we just didn't really gel as well as a team. We didn't do as well, and Brian Rice then would come in. He would come in, I think maybe in my second season at Alloa, and yeah, what an impact he had from a personal point of view. Like you mentioned about he likes to play attacking football. One of the big things with Brian Rice, he generally plays 2 strikers up front.
Yeah,
he plays 2 strikers up front. He likes to play on the front foot. He likes to score lots of goals. He used to always say to us, if they score 4, we score 5. You know, he would literally he would mention that like so many times that was his belief, and he wouldn't be sitting back. He wouldn't be holding on to a lead and stuff like that. So, but he showed so much faith in me. He played me regularly. He played me regularly. He gave me lots of opportunities, and that belief just gives you confidence. It gives you confidence as a player. Because there was times where I wouldn't have played. I had my best game, or I'd have missed a chance, or something like that. And come the next week, sometimes you'd be thinking as a player, right? Yeah, the manager could easily take me out of the team here. And in fairness, he would keep faith with me, and you just were so keen to repay that faith and try and get back amongst the goals and make an impact. But since I've come to Alloa, I've met so many good people, so many good teammates, so many good staff members that are, you know, behind the scenes. People always used to say to me before I signed with Alloa that they're probably one of the best and well-run part-time clubs in Scotland. And having been there for 3 or 4 years now, I would find it hard to believe that there's a better run club with better people than Alloa, to be honest, which is really high praise. But I can't speak highly enough of the club, of what they've done for me as well. I've loved playing. I've loved playing there. I still do love playing there, and I'm excited for obviously the upcoming season, where I know it's going to be quite a tight league. It doesn't look like there's going to be a standout team that could potentially run away with it at this stage anyway. So we're definitely in the mix, and we feel like we have the group of players and the manager, the coaching staff to really mount a serious challenge at it this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was gonna bring that up as well, because I think, by the way, Brian Royce said that exact phrase to me of, if they score 4, we score 5. So
Yeah.
he's still saying it to this day, apparently. But you have sort of two difficult playoff ties where, I mean, I know we spoke with Brian Royce about the one where I think you're leading 3-0 on aggregate at one point, and then Hamilton have that mad 10 minutes where they score 4 goals, and all of a sudden you're out of the playoffs. Again, Hamilton the following season again in the playoffs is becoming a bit of a thorn in your side.
Yeah.
In terms of this season, like you mentioned there isn't really a standout team, because in the past we've had like the Falkirks, Partick, Airdrie, Dunfermline, teams that are almost expected to go up. I know Falkirk spent a little bit longer in there, but still most seasons are expected to achieve that promotion. And this season, Inverness are in there, but there's obviously been a lot of issues around Inverness. The teams do seem very well matched, and given Alloa's previous seasons of going very close, I mean, is confidence high among the club right now? Because, like you say yourself, you've had an excellent start.
Yeah, the manager at Alloa now, Andy Graham, he's always said to us, you know what, lads, the start of this year, our aim for the season is to improve everything from last year. Like, in terms of improve our points tally, improve the amount of goals we've scored, improve the amount of or reduce the amount of goals we concede. Yeah. All of those things. And he's also very much, he's not getting ahead of himself. He really, that whole cliche of taking it one game at a time. We've made a really strong start. We're unbeaten in the league so far. We actually play Inverness this weekend as well, which we know is going to be a tough, tight match. But no, there is definitely that belief. And it comes from the fact the previous 2 seasons where we've come so close. It also comes from the fact that we've kept the nucleus of the team together, and we've added certain players as well. So the group is very much the same. So that belief definitely is there. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for us to have those demands upon ourselves. We've set standards where we've played really well. We've gone on runs where we've been unbeaten. So we know what we're capable of. It's just a matter of taking it game by game and never getting too ahead of yourself and thinking, yeah, we should be, thereabouts. Ultimately, you end up in the position you deserve to be, because you'll end up with the points tally that generally you deserve. So with hard work and with the quality that we've got within the group, yeah, we're really hopeful that we can have a really successful year this year.
Absolutely. And obviously 37 now, 20 plus years in the game. Have you given your future much thought? Is there still hunger and desire to carry on playing as long as possible?
Yeah, no, there is. I still love going to train, and I still love linking up with the boys. I love playing that competitiveness on a Saturday where you're tested. It's very hard to replicate that, I think. And I know I would really miss that if I was to stop anytime soon. And I still feel like I've got a lot to offer. Physically, I've been fortunate enough with injuries. I've not had any major injuries which have kept me out of the game or which have affected my fitness levels or anything like that over the years. So I do definitely have that hunger for it. I want to be part of something successful. I'd love to be part of an Alloa team that gets promoted. So there's those real challenges that really do motivate me to keep training, keep working hard, keep trying to be the best player I can be. So yeah, the hunger is definitely there. I've recently been doing my B license coaching license with the SFA, which has been a really interesting experience as well. Two of the previous guests you mentioned, Mixu and Brian Rice, they were both kind of assessors on the course and coach sort of educators as well, which was really, really cool for me to be able to speak to them on a different level and try and ask them, particularly even for Mixu, where it goes back so many years, to have a chance to sit down and speak with them and ask, how did you manage to sign this guy, or what was your thoughts behind this? Small little things that as a player you take for granted, and then when you come at it from a coach's lens, you realize the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes for coaches, for managers to set their teams up to try and get the best from their team. So really, really interesting from my point of view. So that's I think my next sort of progression. I've recently just done my B license assessment, so I'm waiting on the results of that. But yeah, really enjoying the coaching side of it just now, but still really hungry to keep playing. So we'll see. Time will tell, and depending on whether the manager wants to re-sign me or that, these are decisions that will come in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get onto a real quick fire just to finish things off. I've got one more question, but it is interesting because I think Mixu mentioned bumping into you at that coaching license when he was on, and Brian Rice as well, when you said about in terms of your fitness and no injuries. I think he said when he was on, he used to tell the young kids to watch what you do, watch how you treat your body and stuff like that, because you're going to have a great career if you sort of follow someone of your ilk and how much you dedicate to the game, which I think was really high praise. In terms of the coaching, have you got a plan in your head of, is it management you want to be looking at, or is it just on the training field coaching?
No, I definitely would see myself in the future as a manager. I think in certain aspects I'm quite a control freak. I like to be in control of certain things. So I would imagine if you're a coach, you get to give your input, you get to give your opinion, but ultimately it'll be somebody else that will make those final decisions. So for me personally, I think naturally I would be more comfortable probably in the management position, but I'm also fully aware that to get to that stage, you need to get experience under your belt. You need to get the opportunity to work under certain managers and part of a coaching staff. So I'm quite fortunate where I'm at just now with Alloa. The manager there, Andy Graham, is a guy who I played with during my early spells with Alloa. So he's always been very open to me helping out in the coaching side of it as well and getting an insight. He's always been very open to the idea of, do you know what, anything you want to know or anything you want to get experience of, the opportunity's here for you. So I'm very lucky in that sense that he is so open to that while I'm still currently playing.
Amazing. And that's the main question. We always end with a few quick fire questions. So best player you've ever played with?
Best player I've ever played with, I think it would definitely be Robbie Keane. Robbie Keane at an international level. He's that bit older than me that I was at an age where you're young. Like I mentioned about Eric Cantona, from a club point of view, Robbie Keane was such a young, he came into the Irish national team at such a young age. He was probably 18, 19 years of age when he was scoring goals, when he was playing up front with Niall Quinn. I can remember so many times he scored some big goals. So he was always a kind of Irish footballing hero for me. So then to get the opportunity to play for your country, to get the chance to play up front alongside Robbie Keane, just to get an insight into how he conducts himself. He was so his passion for the game, his movement on the pitch as well as a striker was incredible. He was so sharp. He was such a clever footballer. So to get the chance to play alongside him was an absolute dream, and one that I look back on fondly as well from my memories of playing with him in the Irish team.
Yeah, the movement thing I think spot on with him as well. I think you see that when he had that little loan spell at Celtic, he was absolutely outrageous, wasn't he? Best player you've played against?
Again, it would go back to what we spoke about earlier. It was definitely the Spanish national team for obvious reasons. And I could have picked, like I mentioned, there was Xavi, there was Iniesta, there was David Silva, you had Piqué, Ramos, Sergio Busquets, all of these players. But I think probably from a biased point of view, being such a Barcelona fan, I'd probably go for Xavi as the kind of the standout player where he was just technically so good. His passing ability, his range of passing, and like I said, you just could not get near him because he was so technically gifted and so far ahead in terms of what he wanted to do with the ball, probably before he got the ball. Just incredible player. So I would say Xavi as the best player.
Amazing. The next one we always put as best manager, but it's I guess we're not asking you to pick your favourite. More, it could be whatever's personal to you, right? So maybe the one that got the most out of you, or the one you've learned the most from. But the question is best manager.
Best manager, yeah. I think from a personal point of view, for getting the best out of me, it has to be Mixu Patalainen. Just that season where things just clicked. Everything. I often think back on it, and I just felt as if this team was set up to help me, set up around me, for me to play to my strengths. And that doesn't happen. I've not had that happen to me in all the other years that I've played. So in terms of me getting the best out of myself, the manager that did that would definitely be Mixu Patalainen.
Amazing. And the final question, the question we ask every single guest, but it's probably the most important question I'll ever ask on this podcast. Conor Sammon, what is your go-to pizza topping?
Go-to pizza topping. I think going back to the Partick Thistle pizza, the one I always requested back then was chicken and bacon with a barbecue base, like a barbecue sauce. This was back then. As I've got a bit older, I've actually changed. So if I was ordering a pizza today, I would probably go for like a spicy kind of pepperoni pizza. A bit of chili on there, a bit of heat. But yeah, just a good quality pepperoni spicy pizza would be ideal.
Incredible. The longest answer we've probably had to that question, so it's fitting that it's you of all people as well. That's incredible.
Right.
Conor, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for giving up your time to come on and being okay with us using your cartoon picture for our podcast. As I say, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on, Stuart. I appreciate it, and I look forward to watching the future upcoming podcasts as well on the show.
Brilliant. Thanks.